Suppose we wish to work with complex numbers on the calculator. The calculator can work with complex numbers, and here's how. We first change the mode to the rectangular form of complex numbers. So we hit Mode, and we'll scroll down till we get to this particular option, and then highlight it and hit Enter. Then we'll return to the home screen. Now, in order to access the commands using complex numbers, we hit the Math button and scroll over to CPX. Here are all the commands the calculator has pre-programmed in to perform arithmetic with complex numbers. The first command is to compute the conjugate of a complex number. So let's go ahead and use this as an example to show how it's done. Hit Enter, then type in a complex number, and I'll type in 3 plus 7i. You can get I by hitting second and decimal. So here we see the conjugate of 3 plus 7i is 3 minus 7i. Let's do another example. Let's go ahead and hit Math, scroll over to CPX, and select the second option. This command determines the real part of a complex number. So we'll go ahead and select that and say 3 plus 7i again. And here we see the real part of this particular complex number is 3. Let's hit Math, scroll over to CPX, select Real, and this time type in 2i. And we see that the real part of 2i is 0. So if we hit Math, scroll over to CPX, and scroll down to this one, this command computes the imaginary part of a complex number. So let's select that one and type in a complex number. I'll type in 3 plus 7i again. And here we see the imaginary part is 7. The calculator does not include the imaginary number I, the square root of -1, as part of the imaginary part of a complex number. So if we hit Math, scroll over to CPX, and hit the third option again, let's enter in 2i. And here we see the imaginary part of 2i is just 2. Let's do one more example. Scroll over to CPX, hit imaginary command, and type in the number 5. And here we see the imaginary part of 5 is 0. Now let's look at some other commands. If we hit Math, scroll over to CPX, and scroll down to this command computes the angle of a complex number that it makes with the real axis. This is also known as the argument. Its formula is the arctangent of the imaginary part divided by the real part of the complex number. And if you want the results in radians, the mode must be set to radians. And if you want the results in degrees, you must set the mode to be in degrees. So let's enter in the angle in our complex number 3 plus 7i. And here we can see the results in radian mode. So if we highlight mode and scroll over to degree, and then go back to the home screen, call up that previous entry, and rerun it, we now have the degrees rather than the radians. Let's look at another example. Hit Math, scroll over to CPX, scroll down to angle, and let's type in a complex number 3 minus 7i. Here we get negative 66.8 degrees. The calculator will produce an angle between 0 and 180 degrees, or 0 to pi radians. The negative implies that the rotation is clockwise instead of counterclockwise. Let's look at some more commands. If you go under Math, scroll over to CPX, and select the ABS option. This command is the absolute value of a complex number. It is also known as the length. And the formula is the square root of the real part of the complex number squared plus the imaginary part of the complex number squared. So let's see this in action. Let's go ahead and select it and type in our complex number 3 plus 7i and hit enter. And here we get the decimal representation for this length, which is about 7.62 about. The exact answer for this is going to be the square root of 49 plus 9, or the square root of 58. Now the next command that I'm going to demonstrate converts your previous output to a complex number in rectangular form. So for this example, I will change the mode back to radian measure, and I will also select the polar form for complex numbers. So let's go ahead and make this change so we can see the next command in action. So I'll select radian, and then I scroll down until this guy is highlighted. And then I'll hit enter. Now I'll go ahead and type in a number in that polar form. I'll just choose 5e to the 1.5 pi I. So here we have the polar form of this complex number. So let's go ahead and convert this to rectangular form. I'll hit Math, scroll over to CPX, and hit Convert to Rectangular Form. And it tells me that the rectangular form of this particular complex number appears as -5i. Now for this next example, I will convert the mode back to rectangular form for complex numbers first. Then I will demonstrate the converting to the polar form command. So we'll go Mode, and we're going to get back to this particular option. Then I'll type in my complex number, 3 plus 7i, and then I'll hit Math, scroll over to CPX, and select the Convert to Polar option. And here we see the complex number in rectangular form converted to its polar form. And this is how you can use the commands under the CPX menu on the TI-83, 84 calculators.